What is your advice to the student that, they may not be content with themselves and so they're looking for something else to reach out to, right? Like they're not fully content with themselves, so they're looking for approval from any direction that they can. What is your advice to that
Well,
student?
it's student. What you mean, human? I mean, how we number one, you can't expect anyone at all. Like, can't expect them to feel 100% aligned with who they are because they're constructing that. It's up to the ecosystem to uplift that. Period. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to get where your focus is. So if the focus of the individual, student, adult, whatever you want to call it, is on things that don't add value to them, how can they develop intrinsic value? So look at what they do with their time. Socially, you know, it's spent going out and doing crazy stuff. And that, not to say that that isn't part of what development is about, because at the end of the day, that is how we build social, right? We start playing the playground, and then eventually that playing the playground becomes what they're doing drinking on Friday night. However, it's at the end of the day, when you say yes to certain things, you're saying no to other things. And as a whole, there isn't so much time culturally, because it's not culturally common sense, because that's just a general accumulation of ignorances up to age 18, Einstein, to be engaged in the homework as opposed to the conscientiousness of just having to get it done. I mean, that just goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and actually I had a thought pop in my head about what we were talking about before, about 70% of kids that are introduced to creative, like artsy type
Arts and
things,
crafts. Yeah, yeah.
young age, end up going to college.
Hmm.
I was watching a lecture by Jordan B. Peterson on the amount of on the likelihood or the personality traits that align with going into a doctorate program. And it was like conscientiousness is super high, but creativity is super low. And there's some data on that. It's like interesting to think
That's
about
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
The higher you go up in academia, creativity is less and less of value, and it's more siloed out and compartmentalized to like conscientiousness as a trait versus creativity scored more likely to finish like doctorate programs. And then that was in the capacity of literature, literacy or writing or something of that nature. But at the end, like, to go back to your question, the person that's looking for outside approval, at the end of the day, that person is called all of us to a certain degree. And I would say it goes back to the main cause, is that culturally, curiosity, creativity, thinking, and solving problems isn't necessarily the blueprint of the collegiate experience at a young age. And that, biologically, a lot of things are going on. Sociologically, a lot of things are going on to make it more and more difficult for the individual to give a shit about thinking and about the betterment of themselves, because there's so many distractions, which they're, no matter what, is gonna be that from a material plane, like how the social constructs work with kids growing up, like going out and wanting to date and do all these things. Like, that's totally part of our biological, our biological and psychological purview growing up. Like, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So there needs to be an outside element. I would call it the sixth sense, is culture of a belief system, to like also get your shit together, to develop. And that's going to come from thinking, is what our argument,
I like
culture
that.
matters. So it's like reading, writing, speaking. Those things develop that cognitive ability to solve problems and lead other humans. And we are biologically predisposed to be leaders, or else we wouldn't have children.